If you have made it here, whether you have diagnosis of diabetes or you have been told that you are at risk. But before I tell you if you can reverse it or cannot, first let me tell you what happens when you have diabetes. So, we know that diabetes occurs when your blood sugar called glucose is too high. And to diagnose it, doctors use A1C, which is a blood test that, in simplest terms, measures the sugar in your blood. Technically, it measures the percentage of your blood cells that have what the CDC calls sugar coated hemoglobin. Because hemoglobin is a protein that sugar attaches to as soon as it enters your bloodstream. A normal A1C is anything below 5.7%. If your blood sugar is between 5.7 and 6.4%, that is pre-diabetes. If you have diabetes, your A1C will be 6.5 or higher. So what does it mean to reverse diabetes? As you might suspect, yes, when your A1C starts to drop towards normal levels. Yet this may sound revolutionary to you, but not everybody who has diabetes can reverse it. For starters, there are two main types of diabetes, and only people with type 2 diabetes have a chance of reversing it. That does not mean people with type 1 diabetes characterized by their body not being able to produce insulin and cannot work to lower their blood sugar, but they will always need some insulin to live. There may also be some individuals whose type 2 diabetes is too advanced to reverse. Moving forward, I must tell you about the effects of high insulin in your body. High insulin can cause water and salt retention, which causes raised blood pressure. Number 2 deadly effect it has is on your heart. Persistent raised insulin levels can cause narrowing of your arteries, which can lead to heart attacks. Raised insulin levels increases your low density lipoproteins, that is a type of bad fat and is one of the bad forms of cholesterol. Increased insulin in blood fuels the growth of cancerous cells in your body. In women, it can cause ovaries to produce more testosterone, which is associated with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And lastly, you might remember the weight you gained overnight, that is the salt and water retention weight in your body, which your high insulin levels caused. Now it is narrowed down to one possible way to treat your insulin resistance. Trying to address the blood sugar levels without addressing insulin levels is treating the symptoms, not treating the root cause. It is similar to using a bucket to remove water from overflowing sink rather than turning off the tap. The most important thing to do is to stop adding fuel to the fire. If insulin resistance is driving the condition, you need to firstly stop consuming foods that increase insulin production. Secondly, you need to make lifestyle changes so that you can become sensitive to insulin once again. What foods actually increase insulin production? So far, we know that our food has three main macronutrients that are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And all carbohydrates to some extent will raise your blood insulin levels. That is why we consider type 2 diabetes a form of carbohydrate intolerance. Proteins and fats can also raise your insulin levels, but they raise it to a much lesser degree. They are the macronutrients that keep your insulin levels and therefore your blood sugar stable. If you are trying to reduce your insulin levels, you need to reduce your amount of certain carbohydrates and replace them with proteins, mainly plant proteins and healthy and natural fats. Now you may be wondering why only carbohydrates raise your insulin and not proteins and fats. That is because only glucose can trigger your insulin release from pancreas. So when you cut down on carbohydrates, mainly simple carbohydrates, your insulin response gets better. Proteins and fats also has glucose but not enough to trigger a glucose spike as carbohydrates do. Now before you label carbohydrates as the villain of your story, you must know that it has two types and what type you choose to eat impacts your glucose spike. First type is simple carbohydrates, which are also known as refined carbohydrates. It has glucose in its simplest form, which don't need as such breaking when it enters your stomach. So they quickly absorbs in your blood and creates a faster glucose spike as compared to a complex carbohydrate. As for complex carbohydrates, they are naturally packed with fibers to delay your glucose spike. Now, that does not mean if you have diabetes or insulin resistance, you cannot enjoy simple carbs. Because let's be honest, they make our lives more tasty and they are the fun part. If you keep on listening, I'll share with you the correct way to eat simple carbohydrates without doing massive damage. And if you do so, as I say, not only your diabetes would go in remission, your cells will become more insulin sensitive and you will feel the top of your energy game, and best of all, you will be free of all the food restrictions. One thing that I wanna say before we move forward is that I do not believe that there is one perfect diet for everyone. Different people respond to different diets, so you are obligated to talk to your dietitian who knows what works best for you before going on a diabetic diet. I want you to know that if you thought this was a video about excluding food from your diet, then you are in the wrong place. And know that science's opinion about balancing your blood sugar with food has changed. If you feel overwhelmed or limited by the idea of eating only blood sugar balancing foods, I hear you. But when it comes to avoiding unnecessary glucose spikes, there is more to it than just what you are consuming. In fact, there is one technique you can do that requires zero food restrictions. Now, you might be wondering, does eating a meal in a certain order really make that much of a difference? Well, how about I show you and let the research speak for itself? Science shows that if you eat your meal in a specific order, you can reduce the glucose spike of your meal by 75%. So you're eating the exact same food, but there are much less consequences on your body. So the ideal order will be vegetables at the start of your meal, proteins and fats second, starches and sugars at the end of your meal. Most people believe that eating sweets on an empty stomach provides a boost to kickstart their day. Although it is not wrong, it can lead to a drastic spike and sudden fall in the blood glucose level, which can lead to irritability and fatigue. You must know that when it comes to eating sweets, you hear a lot about high blood sugar, but taking in too much sugar can also cause bouts of low blood sugar. In most cases, the period of low blood sugar happens a couple of hours after eating the sweets, as the counter responds to high blood sugar. Although sweets will always raise your blood sugar and cause the dips that comes with it to some degree. But these are the things you can do to prevent your blood from getting too low. The sugar in sweet foods digests really quickly, and if you eat high glucose foods on an empty stomach, there is nothing there to slow down the digestive process. As a result, your blood sugar will spike and you are more likely to experience a blood sugar crash shortly after. It's probably not coming as a surprise that more sugar you eat, the higher your blood sugar level gets and the more significant the drop will be. Instead, what you can do is to eat sweets after a meal that is rich in protein and healthy fats without overdoing it. And if you want to eat something sweet, pay attention to the portion sizes, use them as an occasional treat, not after every meal, and do not eat too much. You have probably heard that every step counts. Even very light walking reduces your blood sugar levels. For people with diabetes, avoiding sharp fluctuations in your blood sugar levels is a critical component in managing their illness. It's also thought that sharp spikes and crashes in blood sugar levels can contribute to developing type 2 diabetes even if you don't have it yet. Standing also helps lower your blood sugar levels, although not to the degree that light walking does, but still it counts. Standing does have a small impact, and as compared to sitting or standing, light intensity walking is a superior intervention. That's because light walking requires more active engagement of muscles than standing and uses the fuel from food at a time when there is a lot of it circulating in your bloodstream. Your muscles will soak up some of the excess glucose you have in your blood. You still had the same meal, but the impact on your blood will be lessened. I also recommend getting up to do your housework or finding other ways to move your body. This short amount of activity will also enhance other dietary changes that you may be making to help control your blood sugar levels. Each incremental step, each incremental stand, or brisk walk appears to have a benefit.